Hello and welcome back. My name is Kat Hutchings, and today we are going to be talking about my experience on a business reality TV show called The Blox. So if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you have probably run across it somehow. Maybe it's a friend who told you about it, or you ran across like one of their ads and were like, what is this? Is this real? We're going to talk about all of that today. So we're going to go into a little bit just about me and my backstory, so you understand kind of my perspective talking about my experience on The Blox. We're also going to be talking about what exactly The Blox is, who The Blox I personally feel like is kind of best suited for, also maybe like who The Blox maybe isn't as good of a fit for, and then I'll share just a little more about my experience, kind of like what I got out of The Blox. And also at the end, I'm going to share my tips for getting cast on the TV show. It is kind of like an application process. So before we get into all of that, I do like to say, I think it's important to know, like, this is not a sponsored video. I don't get paid by The Blox to say this. This is literally just me loving to share this with my community because it was such a cool experience and I gained a lot from it. So I wanted to kind of answer some of you guys' questions that you might have in case you're wondering if this is going to be a good option for you. So we'll get into it. What is The Blox? The Blox is, the best way to describe it, it is a business reality TV show. But I think even more than that is it's kind of almost like a week-long immersive incubator, accelerator type experience for entrepreneurs. So if you own your own business, if you're trying to grow it, scale it, basically you're going to go there and you're going to not only get a whole lot of education for that week, but you're also going to be surrounded in this amazing atmosphere of other entrepreneurs, kind of like all different industries from all over the country. So that's the main thing I think to focus on if you're thinking about doing this. Yes, the being on TV, being on a reality TV show, especially if most of us are, if we're into entrepreneurship, we absolutely adore our businesses and entrepreneurship in general. So being on a show focused completely on that is a lot of fun. It is really exciting. You're there. So right now, I'm going to give you all the most up-to-date information I have when I'm filming this video. So again, just know that they can change, you know, how many entrepreneurs, the filming, the location, just like any business, they're always kind of like evolving and tweaking things as they go. So right now, it is filmed out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. So if you get accepted to be on the show, you're going to be there for basically a week. There's 5 days of kind of like formal education. And again, this is all like the current status. Things could change. But when I filmed, my experience was about a year ago. And so it's still kind of operating that same way right now from my understanding. You go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. You're going to be there for about a week. You are going to have your own hotel room where you'll stay at, and then you kind of wake up and they give you some kind of morning hours to work on your business. But really the rest of the time while you're there, you're going to be either in kind of like a lecture type environment where you're receiving kind of like this information. You're taking notes, and then you break into kind of like smaller groups. They're called pods, where you will then be with a judge from your season who you will be able to kind of like present your pitch or presentation for that day's topic that they'll give you. And then after you do that, you get to have these one-on-one consults with those judges, which is a really, really cool experience because you get to have these kind of like leading industry experts in their fields that are there to, again, just kind of help coach, mentor other entrepreneurships as they're just further along in their journey, and they get to apply it kind of like specifically to your industry and your business. And you get to ask them questions, and and you get to listen to other people's kind of like consults and learn from their experiences and some of their questions and answers. So really cool. So you do that, and then they kind of like have the blocks off and stuff, and they announce every day you're kind of being scored. So it's a cumulative. So at the end of the experience, it's like they kind of tally up all the points, and it's like if you win your pod, you do a blocks off that night, can have a chance to win some extra points there. So again, obviously, if you haven't had a chance, I recommend watching the Blox to, again, just get a better idea of kind of like how it works and flows. But yeah, so you're going to be there. You're eating all of your meals there. Again, you're all hanging out, you're learning together. There's lots of opportunities. And then afterwards in the evenings, a lot of people get together and just kind of network, hang out, get to know each other a little bit more. So really, really, really cool experience besides just the education, again, to just be a part of something like that. So that's kind of like what the Blox is in a nutshell. So who I think the Blox is best suited for. And this one is like really surprising to me because you wouldn't think it would be such quality education when it's not like super niche down. So I personally feel like the way that they present a lot of the entrepreneur education is geared for almost all business types. So when I was there on my season, I filmed season 10. I'll go ahead and make sure I leave some links so you guys can see just kind of me a little bit on my season and some of those timestamps if you're curious. But I filmed season 10 and there were entrepreneurs that were product-based businesses, service-based businesses. I remember there were some nonprofits there. There was software businesses, like all different industries, some like local mom and pop kind of shops. And so it's like whatever type of business you're in, I feel like the education you receive can be applicable to you and what you're doing. So I would worry less about like, oh, is my business a good fit? And it's more, I think, about like you and what you're looking to get out of the experience. So if you're the kind of entrepreneur who is wanting to put in the work, actually learn the education, apply it, and you have that kind of mindset to understand that there are no cheat codes in entrepreneurship. I know sometimes that kind of is like a buzzy, keywordy thing. Like I can't even tell you how many ads I see on like YouTube or other things like, come make $1 million selling your stuff on Amazon and I'm going to teach you how. Like the reality is like actual entrepreneurship, anyone who has grown and run a successful company will tell you this. Like you have to put in the reps, like you have to do the work. And it's hard at the beginning because you're doing all this work and you're not making any money. And it's like pushing this boulder up the hill. But eventually it kind of gets to the point where if you do it correctly and you, especially like from the beginning, and you start implementing a lot of the stuff that they teach you about systems and different things and kind of like thinking a little more long-term for your business, it gets so much, I don't want to say the word easier because entrepreneurship is never easy per se, but it does kind of reach a point in your business where it's like all of the stuff that you've been doing and trying becomes a little bit more of like its own, kind of like it runs on itself and you don't need to be in there doing it as much, which is kind of the ultimate goal. So I know that's what I found with my business personally. So a little bit more about me. I have been running an e-commerce business online for about 14 years now. So I've sold primarily on Etsy. If you go back and you watch a lot of like the YouTube videos and stuff that I've made, I have loved selling on that platform and it's been absolutely amazing. You know, I'm in the top 1% of all their sellers for both my Etsy shops. I've done over 100,000 sales on that platform. Did really great there. But just a few years ago, I kind of got to this point where I realized for my own personal growth, fulfillment, I really had that desire to kind of branch off of Etsy and continue to grow kind of like my own website, my own brand, my own company. I think a lot of Etsy sellers at some point get to that, you know, stage in their business. And that's where I kind of found out about the Blox and learned about the Blox. And that's why I personally went. It's because it's like, okay, I understand this Etsy world. I'm doing really well there. I've been doing it for years. It had got to that point where, again, all of my systems and processes and everything I had put into place were working really well. And I was like, okay, what's next? What's the next challenge? And so I went to the Blox, got so much information that I am still, one of the reasons I waited to make this video is I wanted to really see long-term what that looks like. Because I can promise you there's so many, and I'm actually, obviously the business I run now, it's a jewelry company. It's called Wonderlight Jewelry. We're focused on jewelry with mindsets behind it. So like every piece you wear, like these are moss agate, they represent tranquility. So that's kind of like what I'm focusing on for today. They come with affirmation cards. So super cool concept. I'm actually really into mindset and that whole business and just that way of thinking about the world. And I know there's a lot of like, I don't know what to call them, conferences, or it's kind of like the Tony Robbins kind of stuff where you can go to these conferences and you can get all hyped up with the mindset and the you can do it. And I love that stuff. And I think there's absolutely a place for that. And that is, I'm not going to lie, like that is definitely what the Blox brings, is that kind of energy, which I love. Like you leave that experience, at least for me, feeling like a completely like different person. Like it just opened my eyes to so many ideas and possibilities and just like ways of looking at and thinking at the world. So that's really cool. But there's also at some point, it's kind of like you get on this high and then it kind of was like, okay, now we're back to doing the really hard stuff and learning how to do emails and ads and all of the things. But so I wanted to make sure that if I was going to share my experience, that it was, and especially, like I said, kind of recommend it to other people, I wanted to see long-term what that had looked for my business. So a year now after my experience on the Blox, like we are still implementing so many of those concepts and the things that they taught us and all of like the notes I received from the judges and different things. Like that's how long, and again, I am not like a 80-hour a work week entrepreneurship right now. I've got to the point in my business, I like to work certain hours. I have, I'm a mom. I like to have time for my kids, my family, my friends, my hobbies. I feel like I actually live a decent work-life balance at this point. So point being, like, yes, you can probably get there a little faster, but for me, a year later, there's so many pieces that we're continuing to implement in our business. Like we launched our own websites. We're doing paid ads now. Like social media, we've got our YouTube channel, like all of these things that were added because a lot of the ideas or kind of like insights I gained from that experience in and of itself. So who I don't think the Blox is a good fit for, I think I kind of already talked about it a little bit. If you're just kind of like looking for this like fast, quick win, like the Blox, you're going to go there and you're going to like become like an instant millionaire. Now, I want to like caveat this, like the Blox I feel like is so magical in some ways because you do meet so many other people, entrepreneurs that are again kind of on that wavelength. You can absolutely have those breakthrough moments. Like I know lots of businesses that have done it and they've either met a person or they had an idea that were literally like almost able to take home and implement, and it like skyrocketed certain pieces of their business or sales or things like that. Overall though, again, I do think it's like this, you've got to put in the time, put in the work. So it's not like they're like, here's this secret magic formula, go do this and put this in your ads or do this and this, and you're going to see like this huge growth. It's just concepts taught in such a really beautiful, simple, applicable, but real way. Like it's not just theoretical, stuff you're learning from professors who have never actually been entrepreneurs. That's one of my favorite things is Wes. He's the guy that kind of like started it, runs everything. He practices everything he preaches. So it's like the Blox itself, that whole experience grew and has grown from a lot of those concepts and things that he's done. And again, all of the judges that he have that come on the season, they go through their own vetting process. Like if you want to be a judge, there's a judge application process, and they want to make sure that those judges that they have are actual like real entrepreneurs that have done the work, that have gained the education, and they have kind of like all of those basic business principles and concepts that they can then share with the contestants and people that they're kind of like mentoring and coaching a little bit. So it's not a quick win. The other thing I like to just caveat and say, I really love that community. I have yet to find a community that I became so engaged with and met like such cool people and I think it's something about the experience and the way they set it up that's really unique. We joke about it and call it trauma bonding, but when you're all there for a week, having that experience, you've got cameras in your face all the time, you're constantly like presenting and pitching. There's tears, like I almost joke, like if you go on the Blox and you don't at some point find yourself crying for whatever reason, you're not doing it right. Not entirely true, but it's just a very real, authentic, growth-oriented week-long experience. And so it's like some of those friendships and stuff that you make, they have like lasted. Like I still have so many people from the Blox in my season. And even like now, because they kind of like put you in this really cool community where it's like all the season. So even if you weren't filming with those people, they filmed before you or after you, there's still like this awesome kind of like connection and networking and kind of like this it's like feels like a family where you're cheering for each other. You follow each other on socials. You get excited for the wins. You meet, like I've met up with people, like if they're passing through town and you're like, oh, hey, you're a Bloxer. Like it's just such a cool kind of like community. And again, nothing's ever going to be perfect. I'm not trying to like put people or things on a pedestal. Like there's always rooms for improvement. And, every once in a while you get someone that maybe you didn't jive as well with from, in that community. But that's just kind of like life. For me, overall, I found that community has been so impactful. So when I tell people like who shouldn't be on the Blox, I'm like, please don't apply if you're not a kind, authentic person who only if you only care about yourself and you don't care about other people's business. Because again, I'm like, I don't want you in that community. But again, when you go through the application process, they kind of vet for stuff like that anyways. They want people who are, again, going to add value and not just be like, what's in it for me all the time. But we'll get to that in a little bit here. So that's, I think, some of the biggest stuff that I got out of the experience is not only, again, that education, but then also the community is huge. It was just such a fun experience too. It did something special, I think, for me personally, and kind of like my confidence with business, like being around those entrepreneurs, talking about it. It was kind of like, and meeting with the judges and things. It was like, okay, wait a second. Like, I do know what I'm doing. And again, like if you watch some of my clips from my season, you can almost like see that transformation and evolution. Like, spoiler, I ended up winning one of my Blox offs. And that was just such like a really special moment for me. Anyways, if you're looking to gain confidence, gain knowledge, gain a community, grow as a person, grow your business, I think those are all things that I kind of like took away from the Blox, and still to this day why I love to share that experience with people. And I almost, again, recommend it to any entrepreneur who is very intentional and serious about growing their company, about growing their business, and on so many levels, just like growing themselves. So finally, I'm going to wrap up here with just some quick tips on getting cast for the Blox. So first of all, again, obviously they talk about this in the emails. Please make sure you watch some of those seasons. They have them posted on their website. You can download the app, watch them there. They're also available right now, at least on Prime Video. You can watch some of the seasons there. So get familiar with that. If you make it to kind of like they do a casting director phone call, that's kind of like one of the final steps. So you do some video application, some written application stuff. Again, they want to make sure that you are going to get as much out of this experience as possible. They want you to come on the show if they feel like you're going to walk away and have a positive experience. So if you're, again, just kind of like a skeptical, negative person, you're probably going to bring that energy and probably not going to get that much out of the experience anyway. So that's, again, they're looking for those people in that application process. So if they can tell that you are an authentic entrepreneur looking to grow your business, that you're honest, like I always say, don't fluff your stuff in the interview. Like, they don't care nearly as much about how great your business is doing. Like, in some ways, like, they want the entrepreneurs to have questions or concerns or areas they're struggling with. So, because again, the Blox can help with that. So if you come on and in your application process, you're almost like, oh yeah, my business is doing so great, it's like, I don't even need the Blox. It's like, well, cool. Like, then, what's the point of getting cast? But really, like, the point of that is, like, if your business is doing great, like, cool, you want to grow it even more, the Blox can still help with that. So just be honest and don't be afraid to kind of like show like, hey, yeah, this is something that I'm struggling with right now, or this is why I think the Blox could be a really good option for me. There is a price associated with it. Sometimes people are surprised about that, because I think when they hear about reality TV, it's almost like, oh, well, you should be paying me because I'm making your TV show. When really, like I said, it's not, the point of the Blox is not to create this TV show that millions of people are going to watch and they make money off people watching the show. The point of the Blox, like the whole reason like Wes has built it and set it up this way, is to help entrepreneurs. Like, that is his business. That is his passion. Like, we all start businesses. Like, I started my jewelry company with the mindsets because I wanted women to have a way to be be more mindful, aligned, and present in their lives without having to add extra meditations or breath work or yoga or kind of like extra time. It's like you can put on a pair of earrings and take 5 seconds and kind of like set an intention for your day in those 5 seconds and have it have a positive impact on your life. that's my passion. That's why this is my business. And so Wes's business is like, his passion is helping other entrepreneurs with their passions grow their businesses so they can bring that to the world. It's not about getting views or drama. Like when you go on the Blox, you don't need to be like worry about them editing it so you look like a, you know, I don't know, like the villain or the typical, like kind of typical archetypes in reality TV show series and things that you are familiar with. You know, again, the cringe, like think of a lot of like the classic like dating shows or things like that. It's not about that. So there is a price associated with the Blox. So they want to make sure, again, that you're comfortable with that when you sign up to do the show. What else for another tip for casting? I think, yeah, just be authentic, be knowledgeable of that there is going to be a price tag associated with that. And again, the price tag, like to me, I've talked to a lot of other entrepreneurs who have done several business conferences and things. This is the only experience I had ever had. I'd never done an experience like this. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, if that's the price, that's the price. I mean, and it does. It includes your food, your hotel. It's almost like a week long. You will also have to pay for your own kind of like travel to get there. But like every single entrepreneur, or even like I talked to several judges that have helped, they were like amazing. They were like, this is such a good price for like the education and the network and what you receive from this experience. So that's still like, it's still to this day one of the biggest financial investments I've made in my business. But I still, again, I just recommend it to everyone. It just took my personal mindset and my business kind of like to this whole new level. And again, it was just a blast. And I met some of the coolest people by doing it. So I think those are the main things. Be authentic, be aware that there's going to be a cost, come like have questions, be familiar with the show again, like why you feel like this would be a beneficial thing for you. And again, just like be a kind person. As long as you're like a kind person, like that is something, I don't know, maybe it's just me and I just kind of like gravitate to those people and find those people. But I feel like for whatever reason, the people that do this experience and that they cast on that show are just such like, not just like, oh, what's in it for me, but we do like want to and enjoy helping other, you know, our fellow entrepreneurs and cheering each other on. So yeah, I think if you're that kind of person, I think it should work out great for you. So in the meantime, I hope you found this video helpful. Again, not sponsored. I'm not paid by the Blox. It's just something that I found to be really beneficial to my business, and I love sharing with other people. So feel free, if you have questions, drop some comments. And again, maybe it's for you, maybe it's not for you. That's totally fine. Like we all have different things that we kind of gravitate to. But if you have thought about it, I just keep doing your homework, look into it a little more. And again, maybe just get on that casting call, get that application in, and you never know. Like you can always say no if you get accepted, but if you don't at least try, like you'll never even know. And so it's an automatic no. So good luck to everyone. And thanks so much for tuning in. If you have those questions, drop them in the comments and I'll try to answer as many as I can. Thanks so much, guys.